Hi all, in this video I'm going to talk about, I'm going to actually solve this assignment that we did in class last week, the HTML server controls assignment. Let's start with number one. Create a new empty website named HTML server controls. I'm assuming you guys know this part, so I'm skipping the first one. Add a new web form, named my first form ASPX. So right click, go to add web form, my web form, and let's add it. What do you notice about the page directive? If you look at the page directive, it's located on the top of the page in the ASPX file. The language is C#, and then auto event wire-up is true, which means events are already activated, events coming from this form. The code file is webform.aspx.cs, which is here. So that's where the server looks for the C# code for this file. And it inherits from the my web form, which is this form. So basically the page directive gives you information about how to compile and run this page, this web form. What do you notice about both the head and form tags? Now, if you have some knowledge about HTML, basic client-side programming, first thing you'll see is that they both have a run at server attribute. It's run at attribute with a server value. In platforms that are outside of ASP.NET, if you're writing regular HTML code, you don't have that. You add this attribute only if you want to access these elements from the server and make changes to them from the server using C# or another .NET language. Change the ID attribute of the form tag to my first form. So the ID is here, my first form. And then let's see, give your web title, form a title using HTML server controls. So in order to change the title, you have to change the title tag using HTML server controls. This will actually change the tab of your web page. And then let's see, it's number 7. View the page in the browser. Now I'm not going to run the page until the end of the video because it takes a while to load the page and I don't want to make this video too long. So I'm going to write everything and then I'm going to run the page at the end. To stop the application, if you close the browser, we can skip this one. Inside the div tags, add the following code. IntelliSense should help. Use IntelliSense to help you complete the code properly. So we're going to add a span tag and an input tag, right? So let's say span, not spam, span. Okay. Looks like ASP.NET has some spam tags, but I don't think HTML has that. What is your name? And then a break tag to get to the next line. PR. Okay, and here now input ID equals input name, type text, run it, server. Let's see, yep. Adding the code behind class. So show your toolbox by going to view toolbox. Now if you don't have your toolbox showing up here, you can go to view and then choose the toolbox and it's going to open up toolbox here. If you might also have it unpinned, which might be here, so you can just click on it. If you want to stay there, just click the pin, so it's going to stick around. Now expand the HTML dropdown and drag an input button to your ASPX file. Now some of you guys were doing the regular button but that's a web server control. That's not an HTML server control. We're not going to be doing that. We're going to be working with HTML elements. So we're going to go and find this one here, and then we're going to add the button, HTML button right here. That's button 1. Type is button. Now we want to be able to access this from the server, so I'm going to add the runit server attribute. And the next thing we're going to be doing is to use the onServerClick attribute to create an event, right? So onServerClick. Now, if you haven't added the runAtServer attribute, IntelliSense will not give you the options. If you add it, you're gonna get the options. And just press down key, press enter to create a new event. Now the button onServerClick event is created in the code behind. So go to the CS file and look at it here. The event handler for onServerClick is already created here. Okay. Now go back to the form. Okay. Again, it tells me to run, but I'm gonna run it at the end. So add 2 new elements. By the way, right now, what happens if you run? If you run and click, nothing's gonna happen because we didn't change anything. Add new break line elements after the text box. Then add an HTML label element with the runAt attribute ID label name visible property to false. Means this label will not be visible. So after the text box, add break tags, 2 break tags, and then add a label with an ID label name. Okay, and it's gonna have runAt server attribute, and visible attribute is going to be false. Okay. Go to the code behind class and you can do double clicking SPXCS, blah blah blah, and find the event method that you generated, event handler method. It's this one here. Set the text in the label element to be the name entered by it in the text box using the following code. Okay, so inner HTML is a property for HTML elements, and it basically, you can change the inner HTML, and that would actually redefine the HTML content of those tags. Let's say you have a paragraph tag or a label tag, and you can change, add HTML, or replace what's inside using the inner HTML. Okay, so we're going to be actually taking the value from the input box and printing that into the HTML inside the label. So label name dot inner HTML equals input name dot value dot toString plus 2 break tags. And then let's go back, run the app. What happens when you enter a name? I'll tell you what happens if you run this app. You click, nothing shows up because the label is still invisible. We have to make the label visible. In the code behind, set the visibility attribute of the element to be true. So before I print anything, I'm going to say label name dot visible equals true. Okay. And adding styles to HTML server controls in the code behind. In order to add a style to an HTML server control in the code behind, you need to use the HTML text writers style class. Add the following code. So this is basically used for adding inline style for HTML elements. Label name dot style dot add HTML text writer style dot color. You're basically adding red color to this HTML element. Discuss whether or not is it good programming to add styles in the server-side code. It's horrible coding. Don't do that. That's same as adding server-side code into your web form. You're mixing apples and oranges. Now it's okay to have a couple of apples and oranges mixed, but when you have tens of thousands of oranges and apples and they get mixed, then good luck. Finally, clear the input text box. Input HTML element does not use HtmlServerControls class. Long story short, we have to assign empty string to the input name value field, okay, to clean the input box. Input name.value equals empty string, and we clean the input text box. Discuss why we added this last line. Is it needed? Why do it? Well, we just wanted to clean up the input box. So when you enter your name, you click the button, and then it assigns your name to the label, but then it leaves the name also in the input box, which is not good. It's not a good practice. If you want to have more cleaner application, then you use the input box, then just get the value out of there. So if it needs to be used again, people can use it without have to removing your previous values. Now let's run and see what happens. By the way, one problem that I run into earlier, I wrote my code and then I made some changes, but even though I was running it and refreshing the page a couple of times, it was still running my old code. It wasn't reflecting the changes I made in the code. So if that happens, you need to click on the refresh browser button. Okay, that actually refreshes the browser for you in a way that you cannot do it through the refresh button in the browser. So let's run it on the Google Chrome and see what happens. What is your name? What was John out of book? And it prints with inside a label, and it makes it red. So let's inspect this element. Label name. This is the ID. So when we actually use the code, you see the style that add HTML text writer style code red. That actually added this inline styling here, color red. Okay, and when I press the button, it took the value of the input name, which was Oğuzcan Adabuk, and it took that, and then it added 2 break tags, right? And then it changed the inside of the label element, as you can see, with 2 break tags. It printed my name, and then it printed 2 break tags because it changed the inner HTML. That's basically all there it is with the inner HTML. Replaces the content, inner HTML content of an element. Okay, so I hope this video has been helpful, and see you guys in the next one.